sparkling Portuguese wine, a pastry in the shape of a seashell, and a crepe named after pig innards. This week, we're in Aveiro, Portugal.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is where travel and food come together at destinationeatdrink.com, on the Destination Eat Drink YouTube channel, and here on the Destination Eat Drink podcast. And this week, we're in a city famous for its canals and colorful boats. It's Aveiro, Portugal. But first, if you could, please share with your friends the Destination Eat Drink podcast. It helps other foodie travelers like yourself discover the show. And if you really like it, please give a one-time or recurring contribution in any amount at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. And thank you very, very much. Rossana Freitas is a guide in her hometown of Aveiro, Portugal. She's traveled all over the world and lived in the United States and Brazil, but decided to return to Aveiro to live, raise a family, and run her tour company, Sentir Aveiro. Rossana tells me about the beautiful boats of Aveiro and how you can ride them, Aveiro's Art Nouveau buildings, the famous candy-striped houses of Costa Nova, and climbing to the top of Portugal's tallest lighthouse. Plus, we talk food, like Aveiro's signature pastry, a unique crepe-shaped dish, and the local sparkling wine. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Rossana Freitas from Sentir Aveiro Tours. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
I was so happy that I got to do a tour with you when we visited Aveiro. I've been wanting to go to Aveiro ever since we moved to Portugal, but I think a lot of people don't know about Aveiro. They know, when they hear about Portugal, they know about Lisbon and Porto, of course, and maybe the Algarve and maybe a couple other places, but I don't think Aveiro is quite at the top of the list yet. So why don't you sell Aveiro to the folks who are listening? What is it about Aveiro that makes it special, do you think?
That's a hard question for me because I think everything is special about Aveiro, of course. What is more special, I would say, are the canals, of course. It's a city that has canals in the middle of the city, which is not very normal, at least in Portugal. We hear about Venice, and we are a lot of times compared with Venice, but I think we are prettier than Venice. At least our boats are more colorful. And we have the typical boats on the canals where you can have a boat tour. And then we have many other things. So our typical sweets that are very known, at least in Portugal, and quite good for the ones that like eggs, of course. We have the salt pan. So Aveiro was very known for the salt, the white gold. And we have our lagoon with beautiful birds. Now in the summer we have the flamingos, and I think it's a very beautiful, tiny, but very beautiful city. You have to come.
I agree. It is a very beautiful city. And one of the things that makes it really beautiful is the Art Nouveau architecture. There's even a museum, a really cool museum actually, dedicated to Art Nouveau, not only in Aveiro, but throughout Europe and even around the world. Talk about some of the Art Nouveau buildings that we can see when we come visit you in Aveiro.
So there's a route of Art Nouveau in the world, which is called the Réseau Art Nouveau. And Aveiro is the only Portuguese city that is in that route. So it's a big thing. We even have a map route that you can do here with 28 buildings. One of them, as you said, it's the Museum of Art Nouveau. It's a beautiful building. I think they are all beautiful. And the main characteristics of these movements are the kind of stone that is used, like a sandstone. The iron, of course, because this movement came right after the industrial era. So we have a lot of iron everywhere. But they were trying to change it in a more romantic thing. So you will find a lot of round movements flowers, leaves, animals. And of course, in Portugal, you have the tiles, hand-painted tiles. Most of the buildings have it, and it's beautiful. Uh, that's my opinion, and I think you agree with me.
I certainly do. I would say, yeah, and you pointed this out, one of the unique things about the Art Nouveau movement in Portugal is the inclusion of the tiles. And if folks have been to places like Porto or Lisbon where they've seen these magnificent tile murals, you're really not getting the whole picture until you go to Aveiro, because these Art Nouveau murals are a little bit different. The colors are maybe a little bit more pastel, and they have more figures from nature rather than figures representing religious themes or people or things like that. And it's pretty interesting. I think it's really cool to see when you go to Aveiro.
Yes, regarding the colors, it's also because we are talking about the early 20s. So if we were talking about 16th century, 17th century, we would see more blue, yellow, so those bright colors. When we come to early 20s, the colors are a little bit smoother, I would say. And that's the difference. And of course, you will see what you said, the natural elements in the tiles, not only the tiles, but also. And it's very beautiful. One of the biggest example of art nouveau we have, not in Portugal, but for you to have an idea, it's Gaudi in Barcelona. Of course, our buildings are a little bit more modest than Gaudi, because it was quite crazy. But it's the same art movement, so they are beautiful buildings.
Let's go back and talk about the canals, and we'll talk about the boats as well. But I think the history of the canals themselves are pretty fascinating, and it's really interesting the reason why they built these canals. Could you talk about that a little bit for us, Rossana?
They didn't build the canals; these are all natural canals.
Okay.
So the city was built on top of the canals.
Oh, okay.
And with years and years ago, of course, everything that you see now where we have the downtown part of the city, which is a neighborhood called Beira-Mar, was salt flats. So we would have salt flats everywhere. And that's one of the reasons that you probably know that big garden that has an underground parking lot now. It's called the Rocio. And the name comes from a salt flat that was right there called Rocia. And that's why the garden has that name. In the city, we have not that many canals. We have 5 or 6 canals, but there's this very small part of the lagoon because the canals in Aveiro are salty water. That's why we don't call it a river. And if you go outside of the city, outside from the locks, we have more 50 kilometers of canal. So it's a big lagoon that we have here outside of the city.
You mentioned that you can go for a boat ride, and I think that's one of the highlights of going to Aveiro is taking one of these traditional mulecero boats. Talk about the boats themselves, like why they are important culturally to Aveiro, and talk a little bit about the boat rides because you do those with your tour company as well, right?
Yes, we have 2 typical boats on our canals. The most known one is the Muliceiro, as you said. The Muliceiro is called that like that because it was used to transport muliço, and muliço it's a mix of algae, of seaweed, that were used to fertilize the lands outside of the city. So those boats were very important for work. Nowadays they are only used for tourism, of course. Then you have another boat which is a little bit bigger, not as colorful as Muliceiro, that is called the Mercantel. And that one was used to transport salt, marine salt. Those 2 boats nowadays are only used for tourism. And the boat tour that you can do in the city lasts for 45 minutes. You go through all the canals inside the city. You see the most modern parts of the city, the oldest part, a little bit of the salt flats, the lock. So it's a tour that you can see a little bit of everything. And it's a relaxing tour. I would recommend you to do, of course, if you come to Aveiro.
It's a lot of fun, and we had a great tour guide on ours who was very funny. And then at the end, he gave us a little packet of salt to take home and cook with, and said, "Go easy on it because it's stronger than your usual table salt." And he was right. But it's very
Yeah.
good. Where I live in Setúbal is also famous for salt, so we're used to the Portuguese harvested salt, and that's pretty much all that we cook with these days is the local Portuguese salt. I happen to love it. I think it's fantastic. And usually when we go back to the States, we bring little packets of salt with us as gifts for folks to enjoy in the States. Rossana, you have your tour company called Sentir Aveiro. What are some of the other tours? We mentioned the boat tours. What are some of the other tours that you do with your company?
We have different activities, different experiences that you can do here. You can do a salt flat visit. So a visit that also lasts for 45 minutes, and you can go through the salt flats and know a little bit more about the history of the salt and how it's extracted and how everything is processed. We have another boat tour, which is very interesting if you have more time in Aveiro, which is outside of the city, and is in a solar boat. So it's a boat without engine. So doesn't make any sound. The birds don't fly away from you, and you can see the lagoon and in the purest way. So outside of the city with no people, just nature. It's amazing. You have to come back to do that one.
Yeah, I do, because I love those because we have an estuary here in Setúbal as well, and
Yeah.
I've done a boat tour like that where you see the flamingos and you see all the different kinds. The amount of wildlife in these estuaries
Yeah.
is fascinating, and I'll bet in Aveiro it's really cool too. So we got to come back and see you. That's the
Yes.
moral of that story, Rossana. Um,
Yes, you do.
I forgot to ask you, when I see the Molicero boats, they're very colorful, and some of them have designs on them, but some of them have figurative paintings on them. And I'm wondering, do those figures that we see, what is the significance of them?
So all the Moliceiros boats have 4 paintings, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. 2 of them are usually, I would say, normal paintings. So figures that were important in Portugal, like Cristiano Ronaldo or Amado Rodrigues, or even figures that are important to Aveiro. We also have some religious ones. And then there's also always 2 paintings that are a little bit naughty, I would say. So with the double meaning, very funny. And the funny thing is that those kind of paintings are original from the boats when they were still used to work. So it's not a thing for the tourists, like a lot of things. But these ones are really original, and the man that used to work in the salt and in the fishing would have a lot of free time. So they would paint those kind of naughty paintings, but it's very funny to see them and pay attention to the legends they have. Very funny.
You're so right. You've got to walk along the canals, because you'll often see those boats parked there, and you got to walk along the canals and just look. Take some time. Don't just walk past them and go, "Oh, that looks cool." Look at those pictures, because they are very funny in some cases, but they're also very beautiful too. So it's something that you can't miss.
Still hand painted.
Yeah, still hand painted. So let's talk a little bit about food, because this is a food-focused podcast. And one of the main reasons I wanted to go to Aveiro is so that I could try your famous ovos schmoles. And I got to say, you led me to one of the best places to get ovos schmoles, because when we first got there, we took the bus up there, and not far from I'm not going to say the name of the place, but not far from the bus station, there was a bakery that we went to, and we were hungry, and I went and I got one, and it was good, but it wasn't that great. And then we went on the tour with you, Rosanna, and you took us to a place I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. This is how you're supposed to get an ovos molish. And I'll always remember that. But tell folks who are listening, what is exactly the ovos molish?
So ovos molish is the typical sweet from Aveiro. It's a conventual sweet. So the recipe was created by the nuns in one of our convents. And it's basically eggs and sugar.
Like all good Portuguese pastries.
Exactly. So inside we have egg yolk and sugar cooked for the ones that have problems with not cooked eggs. And outside it's like the holy wafer, the communion wafer. But it's better sweet than what it sounds, I guess. It doesn't sound that good, but if you go to the right place, as I told you. So I took you to one of the oldest, shops doing, the ovos molds, and one of the only ones that still do it in a traditional way. So everything is still handmade, and it's very good, I would say.
One of the things that I think as you go and you sample different ovos molish, and as we were there for several days, I got to try a bunch of them. I think the thing that differentiates them is the quality of the egg custard in the middle. You want it to be still creamy. If it's older, it becomes a little gummy, and that's not as good. And then so you want them to be fresh, and also I like them when they're dusted with a little bit of powdered sugar, because that communion wafer that's on the outside, that can be a little dry.
Yeah.
So when you have that powdered sugar on the outside, it kind of melts in your mouth, and it makes a really nice texture on your tongue, I think.
The bakery where I took you is the only one that do that sugar thing outside.
Mm.
So all the others don't have that, and maybe that's one of the big differences that we found between them. And another thing is, a lot of people think they should keep them on the fridge, and that's not true, because if you put them on the fridge, and that's what happens sometimes in some bakeries, they put it on the fridge and the sugar will crystallize.
Mm.
And that's why it doesn't melt on your mouth.
The other thing about that I really liked about ovos molish is that they come in the different shapes that are relate to the culture of Aveiro. I think you said to me, people in Aveiro, they like the barrel shape because that has the most on the inside. But there are other shapes, like you can get them in the shape of fishes and seashells and things like that relate to the seafaring heritage of Aveiro, right?
Right. So they always have those kind of shapes that you were talking. So fishes, seashells, barrels. They are not the most beautiful ones, but as I told you here, people love the barrels because they are the biggest ones. And who like the ovos molds, of course, with one film. And as I told you, to be called ovos molds, they have some rules they have to follow. And one of them, is about the shape. So if you find, for example, bakeries that have those sweets, but in shapes like fruit, they cannot be called ovos molds. So you will probably find their like typical sweets or something like that, but not the word ovos mold. Okay. So it's like a protected recipe, and they have some rules. It's nice.
So they've defined the acceptable shapes for ovos molish. Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yes.
One of the other treats that we got to try that I really enjoyed was called tripish. And
Yes.
if anyone knows Portuguese, they know that tripish translates to tripe, which is like pig intestines, pig innards. But this has nothing to do with that. It's something completely different. It's a sweet treat. But I'll let you explain what it is exactly, Rosanna.
Yeah, but please don't go to Porto and ask for a tripa because you will have tribes.
They'll give you the actual tripe. So
Yeah.
only order tripish when you go to Aveiro if you're looking for a sweet.
Exactly. So a tripa, it's something hard to explain, but I think the most uh, similar thing would be a crepe. It's a little bit more fluffy or fat, I would say. But it's a sweet that you can inside. You can put whatever you want. So chocolate, of small, um, many different things. Those were the original things they would put inside, but now they have plenty of options to use. Even salty options, which I don't agree because it's a sweet. But it's very good. I love it. So, yeah, I'm not, I'm biased.
Of course. We got ours. We went to Costa Nova, and we
hmm
we got ours at Zay's, and I think
Yeah.
he takes credit for being the originator of the tripa. And I would say I would compare it, yes, like a crepe. It's very similar. In fact, they use a crepe pan almost, a crepe
hmm
griddle to cook it. Except they don't cook it as long, so it doesn't get as
Yeah.
crispy, and it's a little more chewy on the inside, which I think is really nice. And then I got mine with a couple pieces of dark chocolate on the inside, and oh
Yeah.
man,
That's my
that was really good. Holy cow! Um,
favorite.
I really liked. We did a day trip from Aveiro to Costa Nova, and it's just a 15-minute ride. It's really easy to go there. Do you recommend folks go to Costa Nova? Because I sure do.
Yeah, of course. So there are two beaches, very close to the city of Aveiro. Like you said, 10, 15 minutes driving. Costa Nova is very known for the striped houses. So, and the funny thing is that Costa Nova is between the lagoon. So we have the lagoon in one side and the ocean on the other side. So if you want to go there, you can either go for a walk um, close to the lagoon, see the striped houses, have a tree pump, and then go to the beach. So it's an amazing combination, I would say. We also have the biggest lighthouse in Portugal. And on Wednesday afternoon, you can go up to the lighthouse and the view from there is just beautiful. It's amazing. So if you come here on a Wednesday, I recommend you to do that too.
I was going to bring that up because we did go on a
Awesome.
Wednesday, and
Oh, perfect.
we did climb to the top of the lighthouse, 272 steps to the top of the lighthouse. And they tell you
I
that
know.
they tell you that there's a little plaque up there that says 272, but it is
Yeah.
so worth it because you go up there and there's the worker there. And this is still
hmm
a lighthouse where workers live and work and operate the lighthouse, and
Yeah.
it is sparkling clean. He handles it with a terry cloth, so not to leave fingerprints on it or to scratch it. And then he opened up the light and showed us the lens and the illuminating bulb, and that part was fascinating. And then you see the views, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
it is. It is so spectacular because you're looking right over the Atlantic Ocean. You can see the beach as far as you can see, and then you look the other way, and you can, kind of see into the lagoon and stuff. It's really special. But I talk about this on my website a little bit. Don't look to make online reservations. The way you do it is
No.
you walk up to the lighthouse and you wait for the capitan to come out, and you give him your name, and he tells you, all right, come back at this time.
Yeah.
So we killed a couple hours, came back, and got to climb the lighthouse, and it was one of the highlights of our trip. I loved it.
Yeah. Great. That's amazing. And most of the people forget a little bit about Barra because it's not as famous as Costa Nova, but I think it's also special. Of course, if you have the opportunity to go to climb the lighthouse, it's even more amazing.
And if you have to kill a couple hours, there's tons of beach bars and restaurants and stuff right there, ice cream and whatever you want that you can, go and you can have a good time. And, there's always activities going on the beach. Kids are playing
Yeah.
soccer and sunbathing and having fun. So it's pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned the striped houses, the paleros, and this is getting really popular with like social media, like Instagram. We were there. and there are people posing and doing stuff, all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff there. So it's getting pretty popular. But can you talk a little bit about the history of the striped houses in Costa Nova?
So originally they were fishermen houses or where the fishermen would keep their tools to work. And the original colors would be the black and dark red because of the sun. So it would be the colors that protected better the houses from the sun. And someone liked the idea of the stripes and started with colorful stripes. And from that was very easy to get what we have today. Originally, they were made of wood, of course. Nowadays, not anymore. Only the older ones that you can find there would be made of wood still. And then there are a lot of funny stories or a lot of legends, I would say, about why they had those colors and they were different colors. And one of the reasons they say is because years ago, the lagoon would be very close to the houses and the fishermen would arrive mostly drunk in their houses. And also because of the fog, because Aveiro is very known also for the fog. And so when they would arrive on the boats to their houses, one way they have to recognize which house was their house would be with the colors, with different colors. And that's one of the reasons why they have so many different colors. And so when they arrive, they would know, okay, this is my house. It's the red or the green or whatever. So it's one of the funny stories about the colors.
Nice. It's a fun place to hang out too because some of these have been converted into restaurants. I think you can stay. I was looking online. There was one on Airbnb that you can actually stay in. So
Mhm.
it's pretty cool little spot. I really enjoyed it. I love my time in Aveiro, but I also a day trip to Costa Nova is definitely a time well spent when you're up there.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you because I didn't find out about this until we left Aveiro, but it appears that there's a wine, a sparkling wine from
Mhm.
Bairrada that's made not too
Mhm.
far away. What can you tell me about that? Because I've yet to try it, and I've been looking for it down here in Stubble, and I can't find it here. So again, I'm going to have to make another trip up there to Aveiro to get that. What can you tell me about this sparkling wine?
So the most famous region for sparkling wine is Bairrada, which is here in Anadia, Miradan, different cities. It's very famous, very good. And so all the vineyards or most of the vineyards of the sparkling wine are very close to us. So next time you come to Aveiro, I will have to take you there.
Oh, good.
Uh, you have many different vineyards companies that you can visit. And one of the things I would really, really recommend you to visit is the museum that we have there, which is called the Aliança Underground Museum.
Hmm.
It's a museum that is in that was that it was created on the old cellars, so it's underground. It's like 2 kilometers of a museum underground, and you have these most amazing art pieces there, great collection, but not only about the wine, but like, stones, like wood, like, everything that you can imagine. You have to look at, online and you will find out, I'm sure. And in the end, you also have the history of the sparkling wine of the region. You have a tasting in the end, and it's an amazing place to go. And most of the people don't know about it. I've traveled a lot around the world, and for me, it's one of the most beautiful museums I've been to. So it's
Wow.
beautiful.
High praise.
If you're having the sparkling wine here, you have to do it with the second fig, the leitão.
The famous dish.
Yeah, it's pork dish, but it's an amazing fish. Guys, trust me, it's something that you never have. It's different from all the pork, all the second figs that you have wherever in the world, and it's the perfect combination, the second pig with the sparkling wine. And then the dessert. The opposite.
Of course.
And you will be in love forever.
Like I said, I haven't had the sparkling wine, but I think an ovish molish with sparkling wine would be the perfect cap off of a meal in Aveiro. Sounds divine. Well, Rossana Freitas from Sentir will have a link to your website in the show notes so that folks can get in touch with you and book a tour when they come to Aveiro. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great catching up with you. We had such a fun time on our tour when we were in Aveiro, and it's been great reliving some of those memories with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Okay. That's the wonderful Rossana Freitas from Sentir Aveiro. You can reach her to book a tour at sentiravero.pt. That's SENTIRAVEIRO.pt. And I've also got a link in the show notes. I highly recommend her tours. They're fun and informative and very affordable. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in Manila in the Philippines for 1,000 ways to make adobo and a dish called dynamite. Don't miss that. Until then, get over to destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a new story. This one's about the iconic Guggenheim Museum in San Sebastian, Spain, and the incredible story of getting it built. Read that at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. There's also a new video on the website. It's about life in Portugal, culture shock, and getting acclimated. We talk with expats Susan and Tim about that. You can see it by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by visiting my YouTube channel at destinationeatdrink946. If you're at all interested about life in Portugal or even thinking about moving here, that's a good video to watch. All of them in the Life in Portugal series are, I think, pretty informative. And if that weren't enough, I also have a Substack page that also talks about life in Portugal. I just posted a story about the cafe culture here in Portugal. And if you're interested in that, you can read it at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. And if you'd like to support Destination Eat Drink, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. And thank you very, very much. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.